Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Veronica, and today I want to talk to you about this video, or watch this video with you and talk a little bit about my views on Europe, because this is like reasons why Europe is better than the US from a US perspective. And so let's check it out, because usually there's a lot of generalization happening. Like, don't get me wrong, if I'm talking about Asia or the US too, there are going to be generalizations from anyone that is not part of that area. So get me wrong, I don't blame people for doing it. I just wish that there was some more, like, a bit more nuance. But let's actually check this out and we'll talk about it on the way.
While no place is perfect, Europe comes pretty close. From the incredible food to show-stopping cities, it's no wonder so many Americans dream of moving to Europe permanently. Today we'll show you 10 reasons why life is better in Europe than the USA.
Oh yeah, I forgot to say, this channel is called How to Europe, so I'll drop the link down below for this video, so go check them out.
Number 10. European food traditions. While it varies so much from country to country, there's one thing we should all be able to agree on. European food is fantastic, even better than in the States. From fresh pasta in Italy to fondue in the Alps, Europe is full of food that will make anyone's mouth water.
The fondue in the Alps, to die for. Oh my god, I tried both the cheese one and the dessert chocolate one. Oh. If you have the opportunity, you should totally check it out. I definitely look like this.
No matter how picky they are. Eating your way through Europe is a great way to experience the different flavors,
paella.
ingredients,
So good.
and cultural influences that make each country's cuisine distinct. There will definitely be some options that American travelers could think are strange, but the majority of them are excellent once you give it a shot. Who knew one day I'd become obsessed with escargot or frog's legs? And don't even get me started on the amazing coffee and wine, or we'll never stop talking. Number 9. Amazing transportation. Transportation is faster, cheaper, and run way more efficiently in Europe. Europe is so well connected that it's much easier to get around despite it being about 20% bigger than the US. The engineering feats are world famous. Did you know that you could take a high-speed train going under the ocean from France to England? Or a train from Rome to Sicily that literally gets on a ferry? There's hardly...
That is so cool, actually. Like, I knew about the tunnel from UK to France and everything. Never gone, but I've known about it for a long time. But the one that actually goes on a boat, that one, when the first time I came across that, I was like, are we, what? It's like human ingenuity, right? It's like, wow.
even a need to get a driver's license in Europe. Even small towns...
That's actually very true. I do have a driver's license, but seeing as I live in the middle of a city, I haven't had a car for like the past 6 years. We lived up in Stockholm for a while, and there was no need, so we just sold it. And I never missed it since. You have the convenience and everything, but you don't have to. And it's something I've experienced around Europe as well. Of course, you'll have regions where it's like, not the optimal one, but you tend to be able to get where you need to be through public transportation. So, this part is true.
are connected by bus or train, and of course, Europe is famous for budget airlines like Ryanair or EasyJet that can be mind-blowingly cheap. Not a fan of flying? Go green and travel Europe by train. Check out our other videos on European train travel. Number 8. More time off. In case you haven't heard, they take their holidays very seriously in this part of the world. European culture and customs are drastically different in each country. There are literally thousands of festivals around Europe celebrating anything and everything you can think of, each of them bringing people together to celebrate and honor various aspects of their history, religion, and regional identity. What better way to get a taste of a country than attending a festival? Couple this with the generous amount of paid vacation Europeans receive, 4 weeks on average, and you've got a completely different lifestyle. This also means more time to spend with your family and just to live life outside of work. Also, because of how easy it is to get around to different countries.
Okay, a little bit of a side note. Like, one, let's start with the fact that so far this person has been very nuanced in their take, really appreciated, very much hammering home the whole thing that culture and cuisine is different, like for each country, and even like even different regions within the country. Thank you, love it. This this city, like, it always brings a very like big joy to me. So I do write books, right? And my first book is a high fantasy book called Sword of Dalcor. And when I was still in the planning stages, I was scrolling on Pinterest before it became just AI slop. And there's this city came up from a different angle. And I was like, this is great. Like, it's a specific city in the world. And so every time I see it, I just get happy because it's just so pretty. And one day I want to go. But I believe this is in Croatia. So one day I will. Anyway, that's what's my tangents.
There's so many places to explore. Number 7, quality of life.
Time out. Hold on. I did like I got on a tangent and then I forgot to actually talk about, the section, which is the time off. And it is true that Europe as a like in general has more time off than the US. I think pretty much anyone in the world has more time off than the US. But in Sweden, at the very least, if the company that you're hired by, is part of a union, then I believe the minimum, I cannot speak, minimum days is 25. And then depending on company to company, you can also get additional time off or stuff like that. But I would believe, like, if you're looking to work, at least in Sweden, you can expect 25 days. So yes, this part is true.
In the States, we live life at 1,000 miles an hour. Between the commuting, the long hours at work, and the lack of vacation time, there is less time to relax, and a lot of people put off traveling until they're retired. But where's the fun in that? Europeans, on the other hand, are masters of the work-life balance, and it means the world to them. It's no wonder the French are putting up such a stink over their retirement being pushed back 2 years. After moving to Europe and getting to know people on a personal level,
You do not want to mess with the French or the Germans when it comes to unions. They like they're so incredibly like they are hardcore. Like, Sweden is very big on unions and everything, but we have nothing on France and Germany when it comes to like protesting regarding like union stuff. It is hardcore and I love it. I love them for it. On top of that, I'm very happy that the French people are standing up for it because the headquarters for the company that I'm working for is in France, so it tends to like ripple out a little bit. So keep up the good work, you know. But yeah, don't mess around with that. Let's see what this section ends because I do have another comment.
you get the feeling that they work to live, not live to work. This means by moving to Europe, you're likely to have more vacation time, shorter workdays, and more time to enjoy life. In many countries throughout Europe, businesses literally shut down so employees can have a rest or spend some extra time with their family during the day. Who wouldn't want to live more and work less?
So the comments I have for the previous section, number 7, is that there is some generalization that, oh, the US is working on 100 miles an hour, but Europe doesn't. And it's true for certain areas of Europe that is much more slow and easygoing vibes. But I think it's unfair or disingenuous to say that we don't have that 100 miles an hour kind of work mentality or existence as well, specifically in capital cities around Europe. You can definitely have that experience. But on a whole, yes, I believe that Europe is more easygoing, a little bit slower than the US. However, the whole thing, like shutting down during the day to give you more time, That's not really true. That is the infamous siesta, I believe they're talking about, and it is very localized. It is Italy, it's maybe Spain, but it does not exist like in Sweden or in Germany or Switzerland. Like it's not a thing outside of the immediate Mediterranean area. And even there, I have not heard for the past 15 years that they still do that. The closest thing I know is that the French, again, the French, mwah, you're not my favorite language, but God, you are a trailblazer in corporate world when it comes to boundaries. I love it. So in France, I might be saying this not completely correct, but from what my French colleagues have told me is that the 1 hour lunch is sacred. So when someone came in and like a new manager or something came in and tried to have like, a lunch and learn where you basically it's basically a lunch meeting and they disguise it as a learning thing. The French people went no, and they were like, but it's important. And they're like, you legally cannot touch my lunch hour. And it was just like, mwah. Again, I love it. I love it. And that's about as close as you can get to this. You can definitely have during the summer or whatever in those countries, those specific countries where people are already off work, then yes, but it's not a European thing. It's a very specific thing for specific countries. And so, yeah, that part is incorrect. And it's a very, like, for example, like, okay, I'm going off a little bit, but so take Italy. I have heritage from there. I've been there pretty much every summer during my childhood, and my family's from the northern half, like just around Venice. Sorry. And it's a huge culture difference and mindset from the northern half of Italy and the southern part. There is a it's a comedy about it. I believe it's Benvenuti al Sud. I believe it's called like Let's Go to the South. It's a guy from like Milan who then has to relocate down south, and he is this high powered like professional corporate dude that gets relocated to like um farm village, and has to experience the difference in how more chill they are down there. And that is pretty much like you have in one country have that big of a difference. But yeah, it's a great film. It was it's very like super funny. It's been a few years, but I remember it fondly. If you want to get an experience of like you have in the country, you have the whole corporate high speed kind of thing, and then in other parts of the country, you have a more chill approach of like, Hakuna Matata style. Anyway, I went off. Let's get back.
Number 6, healthy lifestyle. Between the amount of walking you'll do, accompanied by the more natural food options available, it's significantly easier to live a healthy and active lifestyle in Europe. Just look at the European breakfast. Humble but flavor-packed pastries and espressos.
No. No. Again, France, Spain, Italy, potentially. But this is a very like Instagram version. The closest thing I've come to even French people having this type of breakfast is when they have like foreign friends coming to visit and they want to be like a little bit fancy. Yes, the coffee, sure. Having pastries as a breakfast is not super common. Anyone who is from France and everyone, how much pastries do you actually eat? Because in Sweden, it's usually more like granola, yogurt, sometimes cereals, or just like bread in the sense of like you have your slice of bread, you have some ham, that's it. So it's never something like this. Having pastries every day, my stomach could never. My sugar high could never. But yes, the coffee is true.
Replace breakfast sandwiches and giant sugary coffees. And with all the street food vendors and bakeries selling fresh, less processed treats, you'll naturally avoid the familiar fast food chains that are prevalent in big cities. Although it is pretty entertaining to see Euro versions of McDonald's that sell beer and wine. It's worth mentioning
That is also very specific countries. Like in Sweden, there's a you can only buy alcohol from one specific shop, which is a what do you call it? A government company. It's been privatized now, but in Sweden, the law is that you can only buy from Systembolaget, which is the alcohol place company, whatever you want to call it. So you cannot go into a store or to McDonald's and get wine and beer and everything. I believe that I've seen that in Germany, Italy, France. Yeah, it's not widespread. It's not widespread. This very localized.
that Europeans are less into snacking in the first place. Restaurant portions are generally much smaller, which is why it's so rare to find takeaway boxes. Combine all of that with the great healthcare systems and cost of living in Europe, and you can see why they're able to live such a healthy, enviable lifestyle. Number 5, lower cost of living. Even though the euro is slightly stronger than the US dollar, there's one thing that can't be debated. The cost of living in Europe is much cheaper than the USA. Sure, cities like Paris and London aren't cheap, but neither is San Francisco or New York. European salaries
Yeah, I think it's a difference in scale. We have cities in Europe in general that are on par with them. Like one, don't go to fucking Switzerland. Everything there is insanely expensive. So I believe that cities in Switzerland is definitely up there. But it's also, you have Belgium where the seat of the EU is and everything, which, by the way, magnificent city. You should visit. So, yes, on average, we have a lower cost of living, but our salaries are also a lot lower than the US as a baseline. But we do have better healthcare because we actually pay taxes. Yay!
are much lower than American ones, but they pay more in taxes, which contributes to their fabulous healthcare and education system. This makes the smaller salaries feel much more livable, and if you're making an American salary, you'll probably notice that certain things like hotels, food, and transport are surprisingly affordable, especially in Eastern Europe.
Yes. Okay, I'm doing a lot of this. So, excuse me, I got too excited. I almost died. So, something that a lot of people who are talking about Europe, they kind of leave out the Balkans and like the Eastern Europe, which I think is a crime because the Balkan region is beautiful. There's a lot of really like stuff like this, And you have the mountains and you have the oceans and everything, right? It's beautiful. But the culture between like Western and Eastern Europe is quite different. And so like we have a lot of mix in my like in my office because we're like an international office where we have a lot of Western Europeans and then we have Eastern Europeans as well. And I like just getting to sit down and talk to them is like they are like, I have to sugarcoat everything. When I'm home, I can just say it plainly, and that's how the culture is. But Western Europe is not like that. You have to be a little bit more soft, you have to be a little more considerate. And I'm not saying that the Balkans and the Eastern Europeans aren't considerate. It's just like how the difference of expressing things is. It's just hilarious. And then like having them like try to like they take a little bit of an extra second to say things because they have to like sugarcoat it a little bit before they speak it because they can't be as direct as they're used to. It's hilarious. Anyway, yes, don't miss out on the Eastern Europe. It is so nice. And it's all usually a lot cheaper.
Number 4, higher education. Education is a completely different experience in Europe, with the most noticeable contrast being the actual cost of attending a university. Colleges are very inexpensive in most places in
Hey, Sweden got a mention! Yes, Sweden, it is completely free to go into higher education with a little bit of an addendum there, a little asterisk. So the people who can go into higher education without ever having to like take a loan or anything comes from a family that has money that can cover their costs. But for me, for example, I had to take a loan so that I'm still paying that off. But because Sweden has a brain regarding education and money and stuff, and it's not like it's a you can't take a regular loan. It is a specific like student loan, and that student loan is facilitated by the government, so it doesn't really follow the regular loan like percentage. It's a very low percentage. I believe it's on 1.5% right now. So it's very doable to actually pay it off within your fucking lifetime and not go under, like go bankrupt. So when people talk about, oh, it's completely free and it's so easy, like you're still taking a loan in order to pay for your textbook, to pay for food, to pay for accommodation and all of that stuff. So it's not free, but yes, going to school is free if you don't have to buy textbooks, you don't have to like use transportation, whatever, right? Just a little addendum there because a lot of people tend to glorify Swedish education in that regard. But yes, you don't have an entry cost so that it's open for anyone, which is great. I really love that. And I think it's important that anyone from any socioeconomic class and experience and history has the ability to get higher education. So, yes.
In Europe, and some countries even make it completely free to enroll. While most young people in the US graduate with instant debt, countries like Germany and Sweden have chosen to put their tax money towards free universities for all. This alone makes the cost of living in Europe cheaper than the US. My one-year master's program in Paris costs 300 euros. If you'd be interested in seeing a video about how to study in France, comment the code word MASTER. Number 3. European culture and history. As a melting pot for almost every country in the world, America is filled with plenty of history and diversity. Yet, as far as history goes, so much of what we have in the US originally comes from Europe. The food.
I know I go off on a lot of tangents, but hey, my whole like I'm doing video blah blah blah. I'm too fast for my own sake, okay? I know I'm going off on a lot of tangents, but it's also like I'm making YouTube videos. The whole thing is to have opinions and thoughts and all of that and commentary, you know? And I've always found this whole melting pot, like the US is the melting pot of the world, to be a bit, not gonna say inaccurate, but a little bit overblown. Because the US is it's 25, so what, 249 years old? I believe I heard that last year, I just 250 maybe, like 250 years old. Europe has so much history and more time than the US, not taking into consideration Native Americans and all of that extensive history and long term. We do not have the space in a reaction video to talk about all of that stuff, so excuse me, I'm putting that to the side. But Europe has a lot of history and time, and during that history, we have a lot of wars taking place, we have a lot of trade, we have a lot of development and treaties, and don't get me even started on the royals marrying each other to the point where they're all one big happy family today. It's actually like, don't think too much of the genealogy of it all because it's not looking good. All right. I mean, that's one way to get out of the like monarchy stuff, I guess. They're all gonna die because anyway. I should not be. Okay, that's a joke. Anyway, my point is that there has been so much movement from like within Europe itself, and then you take into consideration when Alexander the Great went out and did his stuff, and bringing back people like from different areas of Africa or all of the big areas in Asia as a combined thing, and then you also have then North America, and like it's coming in the like the trade. And do I talk about the Vikings going out and pillaging and plundering and all of that, and tended to go like, you're the prettiest one here, so I'm bringing you home and making me wifey. So you have a lot of exchange in that way as well. And then, all the wars and stuff, people die, people couple up, they have kids, and then your different cultures get mixed up. So I believe, or not mixed up, but like combined, and it develops into a new thing. It's very fascinating. And so having the US being the melting pot of the world is it feels very much like rebranding and like putting a new fancy like beautiful bow on a concept that has happened all over the world constantly. It's just happened to be more of a modern thing because of course with the development of flying and all of that and trade to a next level, it is like a modern a modern melting pot, but I don't personally believe that it is a good representation of the world because okay, I'm going off, but like yes, I just want to say that, oh, sorry. I just want to say this last thing, okay, is that while the US has a lot of people coming in from the rest of the world and their cultures like influencing a little bit, the US still has, like any country, a unified base culture. And that culture is not necessarily, with different traditions or cuisine and stuff. It's more like you have a basic understanding of how your society works. You have federal laws, you have expectations and requirements, how your school system works, how taxes work. I mean, unless you're a billionaire, but whatever. So you have an understanding of a baseline culture. The same thing is true in Sweden, but my baseline cultural understanding and experience is not the same as the one just in Denmark, for example, or in Germany, which we have very like a lot of like interactions with, whether it's tourism or it's trade or work, whatever. So saying it's a melting pot just feels very weird to me because it's just like you still have the same baseline understanding of your cultures and everything, and then you have variations on top of that, but the baseline is America, right? You know what that. It's a whole video on itself, clearly. I have so much to say. Anyway, moving on. I will I'll see if I can manage to do that.
Food, languages, traditions, and many of the very names we go by originate from across the Atlantic Ocean. When you consider the fact that American history only goes back a few hundred years, seeing architecture that's thousands of years old in Europe is quite remarkable. It's common in Europe to see establishments that are significantly older than the whole United States. Can you imagine if each US state had its own language, culture, and foods for you to embrace? There's so many things we love about this region, but the rich history and diversity are truly something to behold. Number 2, restaurant etiquette. Things you may take for granted in the US are not always free or even available in Europe. Sure, you won't get complimentary ice water at a restaurant, and you might find yourself paying to use bathrooms.
What do you mean you can just ask for ice? I have not been in any place in Europe where I just couldn't ask for ice. I mean, in some countries I wouldn't recommend it because the ice comes from tap water. In some areas, your stomach flora and stuff can't really handle it. So I would avoid using ice or asking for ice unless you can handle the tap water. But you can definitely totally ask for ice. Just try asking.
But what you will get is a slow, sacred meal experience where you're encouraged to take time to savor each dish without feeling rushed out. A 3-course meal might sound fancy for Americans, but it's completely common in Europe. You might also be surprised that your waiter won't pop in to see how your food is, or even bring you the bill unless you ask for it. But the trade
Yes, that is true. The whole thing, anyway. 3-course meal, not super common unless you're doing fancy stuff. Anyway, that's something. I went to the US 2 years ago-ish. I went to like Las Vegas, but anyway, the culture, like the restaurant culture is still the same, right? And that was something that both me and my partner was like, could we breathe, please? Like, we'll ask. So yeah, the whole thing, like you have to ask for the check. They come around like, hey, if they're noticing that you've finished eating, and then they give you some time, and then they come like, do you want anything else, or do you want me to bring the check? And then you can either order more or, check. Sometimes you just have to like wave them down or something. And if they're really not paying attention to their jobs, I usually just stand up and start putting on stuff. That usually gets their attention, and then they hurry over. If they don't notice it, I'll just go up to the hostess stand and go like, hey, I would like to pay. Okay. But yeah, definitely a big difference. It was so frustrating in the US. It's just like, hey, let me finish my first bite before you check in if everything is okay. Like, breathe.
The trade-off is that you won't have to calculate a 20% tip afterwards. Tipping is
the tipping. Oh my god, the tipping. That was so stressful.
a less prominent tradition in Europe, although you still need to do your homework and research from country to country. Of course, when in doubt, you can always show your appreciation by leaving a couple euros. Be sure to check out last week's video, Top 10 Culture Shocks Americans Will Have in Europe, to see what other customs are different. Before we reveal the #1 reason why life in Europe is better than in the US, if you're enjoying this video, please consider subscribing to help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Number 1. Europe is fun. Europeans know a thing or two about how to enjoy life, and since they're less preoccupied by the stress of life, work, and cost of living, they're generally happier. And who doesn't want to go somewhere people are happy? Combine this with all the beautiful places and exciting year-round activities, there's simply no shortage of fun to be had in Europe, whatever your interests are. From summers along the Mediterranean Sea to winters skiing in the Alps, you'll never find yourself bored in Europe or far from welcoming people. And if you're like me, you might not ever want to leave. So, have we convinced you that Europe is better than the US?
All right, Europe is fun if you have money. Yes, there's a lot of stuff you can do. Europe is very like popular for hiking and, swimming. I almost said skiing on the ocean. What's it called? Surfboarding. Whatever. So there's a lot of like free-ish stuff that you can do. But overall, like anywhere in the world, everywhere capitalism is, everything is monetized. So yeah, it can be very fun if you have money, but the same concept exists in Europe as it does in the US, so do keep that in mind. If you're coming in with a US salary, like a good US salary, yes, you will probably find like, oh shit, everything's cheap, what the hell? But for someone who is born and raised and living in Europe, no. For example, if you're just like Sweden, I don't know if you want to go to Sweden, but I always say that Sweden is a great country to grow up in, but once you're an adult, it's pretty boring. And I live in a city in like Malmö, and I will say very pointedly, I love this city, especially because during the summer months, they are terrific at making sure that kids of all ages have stuff to do. And I like the backstory and all of that is very heavily tied to criminal activity, in the sense that in order to discourage children from getting roped into criminal activities and drugs and all of that stuff, you give them something they can do and have fun with so that they occupy their time without bad influence, or with less bad influence. So Malmö is super, super good for that. And they are free. That's the point. Is like you have a big financial income gap in Sweden, and unfortunately it is growing. But this city is so good at making sure that anyone from any income bracket can participate in this, so that parents of doesn't have a how can I say it? Parents of lower income doesn't need to feel like, oh my god, I can't let my kid do anything because I can't afford it, and then they go back to school and they get bullied for it, blah blah blah. They don't experience life. No, if they're in the city, they can do it. They can participate in I'm drawing a blank. Like last year, I saw some skateboarding stuff, learn how to skateboard kind of stuff. Excuse me. Whew, Poland is strong today. And I believe I also saw some dancing stuff, if you wanted to learn breakdancing or hip hop. I don't know, okay? But it was dancing and it was skateboarding, stuff like that, all of the kind of stuff. and I really enjoy it. I really love that my city is doing that, even though it's not so much for adults. But actually, there are sometimes stuff for adults. We have like big festivals here, etc. But during winter here, they also created an ice rink in the central part of the city, and you could rent like the material, the skates, there we go, for an hour completely for free. And then, you know, obviously it's more geared towards children, but the parents were there. Like, I saw the cutest like couple on that ice because it's right where I work. And they were so cute, and it was clear that it was like their first date. And I'm like, oh, precious. So yeah, Sweden is a good country to grow up in once you're an adult. It's kind of meh, in my opinion. I would love to move more south where you can more participate in, you know, hiking, not even hiking. I'm not a big fan of hiking, but, you know, experience views and these different cuisines and all of that stuff. But yes, bottom line is that you have to have money to have a lot of fun in Europe too, even if there are more free options in Europe than probably in the US. So yes. And that's the end of that video. Thank you very much, How to Europe, for creating it. And anyone who, like, make sure to go over and like give them some support. And like them, I'm looking to hit 1,000 subscribers this year. So if you liked this type of video or any other type of videos that I make sure to hit subscribe. And if you really liked it, make sure to also tell me that you liked it. And if you're from Europe, did you agree or disagree with something in this video? And if you're from the US, did anything that I brought up surprise you, or did you already know everything? So let me know down below. Have a great day, night, wherever you are on the time stream, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!